to get the cue that we're on live because we are Facebook Living this event, and we are live. So we will get started now. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to our Napa County District 5 Supervisor Candidates Forum. We have both candidates present tonight. I am Mandy Lee. I am the President and CEO of the American Canyon Chamber of Commerce. To my right is Paul Hicks. He is one of our chamber members and serves on the Government Affairs Committee. That committee is responsible for gathering questions for this evening, so he's helping me field questions that we will be asking the candidates. The candidates did receive a list, a pretty heavy-duty list of possible questions that we were going to ask them this evening. They don't know which ones specifically we're going to ask, but they were given a list of questions in advance. We also have opportunities for the audience, you guys, to ask questions. You can write them down on slips of paper that Chris, who is one of our chamber board members, has. Valerie had a few floating around. There might be a few back on the back table. So if you have any additional questions, feel free to write those down and just wave them in the air, and someone will pick them up out of your hand and bring them up here to the table. So I wanted to do a quick shout out and thank our sponsors for the evening. Napa Valley TV is one of our sponsors. They are responsible for filming this on Facebook Live right now, so you can watch it live, maybe if you're tuning in, or you can recap it and see it on our Facebook and our YouTube channels in the future. So thank you. I also wanted to thank Jaime, who's responsible for this beautiful facility that we are able to meet in tonight at the Boys and Girls Club. So thank you, Jaime, for hosting us. How this event will work is, I don't know if you saw, I know Facebook Live people didn't see, but we did flip a coin in the front, and Belia was chosen to kick us off this evening. So she will do a 2-minute intro, followed by Mariam. Then they'll go back and forth with Belia answering the first question. They'll have 2 minutes to answer each question. We have a timer up at the front to keep us on track. And then we'll have audience questions and a 2-minute closer. So without further ado, I'm going to have a seat. And Belia, take it away with your intro, please.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Belia Ramos, and I have had the pleasure of being your supervisor for the last 3 years. Prior to that, I served you on the American Canyon City Council for 6 years. One of the greatest things I get to do as your supervisor is I get to touch someone's life each and every day. Whether it's the single mother of 3 who became suddenly homeless on Christmas Eve and needed a place to stay and a warm meal that evening, connecting her with services. Whether it's responding to the frustrations of those of you that drive to Napa on a daily basis and you have to deal with the failures of the South Kelly Light and the backups at Airport Boulevard. Whether it's the concern of our youth and their desire to have a solid future that is free from the pressures of climate change, I get to address those things each and every day with you. I get to listen to you. I get to use what you feed me in terms of information of your concerns to motivate me to work for you, to address our parallel road systems that we need so deeply down here in the South County, first with the extensions of Devlin Road and next to follow Newell Road. Whether it's working on a climate action plan to make sure that we have a place to go forward and addressing climate change. Whether it's providing housing as the Vice President of the Association of Bay Area Governance to be able to provide regional planning, or to actually create and fund the housing. Each and every day, I have the ability to touch your life, to guard your quality of life, and to care for our most vulnerable. I want to continue to serve as your supervisor, to listen to you, to work with you, and to elevate our collective quality of life that makes all of us call Napa Valley home.
Can I see what your time thing looks like? Okay. that's tiny. Okay. Ready? Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here and spending your night with us, and thank you so much for your civic engagement and fulfilling your democratic duties, right? My name is Mariam Aboudamous, and I'm currently one of your city council members. I just finished up a term as vice mayor. I'm also a practicing attorney full-time in Napa courts. I practice in the realm of immigration law and construction defect litigation. I'm running for Napa County Board of Supervisors because I genuinely care about this community. I've been here since I was 2 years old, yes, before incorporation, and I went through all of the schools here. I started off at Noah's Ark Preschool, right down the road off of American Canyon Road, next to the community church, for those of you who don't know it. And I went to Napa Junction. I was actually the very first person to ever graduate from American Canyon Middle School. Accessibility and openness are very important to me. My top 3 issues on the Board of Supervisors are traffic, housing, and economic development. It's no secret that a lot of our residents are commuting out of town for jobs that pay them well enough for them to be able to afford living here. We also have another huge population. How many of you have heard of the study that says 2/3 of the traffic on Highway 29 is not our traffic? Well, we have a lot of people commuting into the valley at jobs that don't pay them enough to be able to afford here. And this is where housing and economic development comes in, right? We need to build or find innovative housing solutions to house the workers coming in to get them off our road, because as we all know, climate change disproportionately affects the poorest communities, and that's because they're spending the most amount of time on the road to get to their jobs, right? And we also need to bring higher paying jobs into the county, and we need to be more innovative about the way that we think about our higher paying jobs. We want to get people off the roads. If somebody is able to work closer to their house, that's 1 car off of the road. How many of you want? Okay, thank you.
All right, so we have a list of topics that we are going to go through one at a time. We are going to start with the economic vitality of the county. The first question that we have here tonight will lead with Belia, and the question is, what specific goals do you consider to be the most important to set for the continued success of the economy in Napa Valley, particularly in South County?
Without a doubt, addressing our traffic congestion is going to be one of the most crucial ways in which we can support our economic growth and vitality here in the South County. When your employees, if you own a business, are spending time on the road, they're having to balance that with their decisions of quality of life and if it's worth it to them to work for you. When you have to spend extra time transporting goods on the highway, if you are running a logistics business or a delivery business, time is money. That is hindering your ability to be economically sustainable and to grow your business. It's important that we make sure that we are addressing traffic congestion, not just for the residents, but also for our collective economic vitality here in the South County. Additionally, one thing that is incredibly important moving forward is we have an asset at the county, and that is in the airport. And the airport industrial area and the airport themselves are one of our greatest opportunities of growth and investment. Going forward, it's important and imperative that we ensure that the airport becomes a quality location to ensure that we are fulfilling the needs of a county airport, that we are providing the right mechanisms for businesses to succeed in that airport industrial area. That is the gem, that is the place where the county can actually have the greatest economic growth, and we need to continue to embrace it.
So the central question here really is, what kind of city do we want to be? And what kind of county do we want to be? What do we want our future to look like? What do we want to build together? So I grew up here. I want my children to be able to grow up here if they so choose. I want them to be able to afford that. How do we get there? We need to figure out how to bring more workers into the valley that also live here, so the higher paying jobs, but we can also think about that in terms of improving our public transportation. Because so I'm a part of the Economic Development Committee of the Chamber of Commerce here, and one of the biggest complaints I'm hearing from businesses is we don't have enough workers. Well, we don't have enough workers because we're competing with new contract employers such as Uber and DoorDash and Grubhub that are helping people make more money, but those jobs are not stable. They're not certain, you don't get benefits, they're contract jobs, right? We want people to work here so that our businesses can thrive. We want to help get them here through improved public transportation. That's one thing. Another thing is a diversity of businesses, right? I've heard it so many times from our residents here, no more chain restaurants. You guys wanted high-end? We brought high-end, we brought Lasso, right? So that's another thing that we need to consider. So my thing is, we need to improve our public transportation. We finally finished, just settled pending litigation on the Broadway District Specific Plan. That's in place to help us attract new businesses and help them grow and help them thrive. And once it's built out, we're going to be working on these urban cores where drivers on the road are at a stoplight and they can easily enter these business centers, right? So it's easy access and it's an increased workforce that we need to work on. And part of that, a huge part of that is tackling our traffic problem.
All right, this next question will lead with Mariam this time,
Okay.
before you sit down. Gonna keep it fair and go back and forth. In your opinion, what is the most important challenge to the economic vitality to the Napa Valley today?
Okay, so I started answering that question by talking about how there's a lack of workers. There's a couple of things that need to be worked on that we've been working on. So one thing is, when I went away for college, I came back, I didn't find any of my friends. And the reason for that is it's very hard to stay here, it's very expensive, and you don't find the jobs that you're looking for. As a solo practitioner, I even had a really hard time finding an office to rent because starting off brand new, you can't afford it. Our prices are crazy high. So none of my friends were still here. We need to keep our college-educated youth here. One of the things that we've been working on is bringing the trades into the high schools. Not everybody wants to go to college, but we still need those trades, right? The unions, the trades, the workers. We need that force here, and that's one thing that we're doing. Another thing that I've been advocating for is work home condos so that you can work from your home in a way that's attractive enough for you to still be able to meet with your clients and things of that nature. So it should be helpful in attracting more employees, but also traffic. I'm going to talk about traffic and the housing jobs balance all day, all night, all the time, right? We need to figure out how to improve our public transportation so that we can bring the workers in. We need to find them housing so that they want to work here. If people wanted to be in San Francisco, they'd be in San Francisco and pay the outrageous prices and deal with the ridiculous traffic, but we're here in the Napa Valley. We grew up here, we want to be able to stay here, and we want our kids to be able to stay here. So we need to find housing, higher paying jobs, and help mitigate the traffic.
Question again? In your opinion, what is the most important challenge to the economic vitality of the Napa Valley today?
The most important challenge is housing. I know this firsthand. Back in 2013, I became a single mom, and I was on the city council, and we were allowed to live outside of the city for 30 days for a matter of convenience. On day 26 days, I had 4 more to go. I found a place to rent. And the place I found to rent, I was lucky, there were only 3 houses available. And I had to pay 6 months' rent in advance to get it, to compete, because there were so many applications. Housing. That happened to me. I have a good paying job. I am educated, an elected official, and I couldn't find a house. Housing is the single greatest challenge that we are facing. For every 26 jobs we have created here in Napa County, only one housing unit has been built. 40% of our workforce is coming into the county. Now, we're not going to build enough housing for everyone. Not everyone wants to live here. I don't know why, but not everyone wants to live here. Housing is the single biggest threat to our stability going forward.
All right, Belia, we're going to lead with you for the next one. In 5 years, if you were able to envision true success in this area, what will have changed?
If I look at 5 years out, I envision a place where everything we need is here, where our experiences are all here, where every resource that our heart desires is here, where you don't feel the need to leave Napa County to get something. It's a picture of knowing that we have provided for our residents, knowing that our residents feel secure, knowing that they feel safe, and knowing that everyone is thriving. 5 years from now, we have made measurable progress towards addressing our jobs housing imbalance that we have, again, providing for what we all need. 5 years from now, we will have made measurable progress, as we are right now, in our parallel road systems, so that we have safe exit routes in the event of a disaster. 5 years from now, it looks short, but it's amazing what we can do together in 5 years.
Hello? Oh, there we go. So I know what I want to see happen in 5 years, but what I really want to know is what you want to see happen within the next 5 years. I've been working on the Watson Ranch Development Agreement. I was the only council member on the subcommittee negotiating the Watson Ranch Development Agreement. The reason for that, my residents told me that they want a town center. My residents told me that they want a parallel road to Highway 29. We are supposed to break ground on the Watson Ranch project this summer. It has been negotiated for 15 years. I was the only council member on the subcommittee negotiating that. In my first 2 years of office, we got it done. The other thing is the Broadway District Specific Plan. So I've been talking a lot. This is our 4th forum now, right? 4? So this is our 4th forum now, and I've been talking a lot about how we need to change the way that we think about zoning, and we need to change the way that we think about development. The part of the Broadway District Specific Plan is to centralize our development. So at the traffic lights, you go into a shopping center and it's got a whole lot of stuff that you're gonna need. We also need to think about housing in that way. Something I've advocated for ever since I was elected to the city council is building retail on the 1st floor and then going a little bit higher density above that. It hasn't happened yet, but it's still something I'm advocating for. And now I'm saying it again. We need to do higher densities, retail, create these urban cores around public transportation. Our public transportation needs to be improved for that vision to succeed. And we'll talk more about public transportation later.
All right, we're going to actually enter that topic right now. Okay. Sorry, I made myself laugh. How do you think, Mariam, you'll lead this one? Sure. How do you think we can balance the transportation needs resulting from natural growth with the quality of life issues cherished by residents? And how do you relate this to the congestion and needs for improvements on highways 12 and 29?
So the first thing I already said is we need to bring innovative solutions to housing for the people commuting into our valley. You've heard it enough. I'm tired of beating the horse. Another thing that we really need to focus on, especially in the city of American Canyon, is pedestrian and bicycle connectivity, right? So we have introduced our bicycle and pedestrian connectivity plan to the county. I'm pleased to say that we are the only location that has introduced Class 4 bike lanes, which are the safest bike lanes out of all of the classes. So that's one thing. There's a lot of things that need to be done together. It's not just one answer for this, right? So we have BDSP in place that's an extension of, that's creating an extra lane on each side of Highway 29. We have our bike and pedestrian walking plans that we need to continue to work on and actually bring to fruition. Connecting the Bay Trail is another thing. Improving our public transportation system. I've lived here since I was 2 years old. In 2005, I was a student at Napa Valley College. My car broke down. The only way for me to get there was by taking the bus. In 2005, the bus from American Canyon to Napa Valley College, about a 10-mile trip, took me 1 hour. To me, that doesn't sound like efficient public transportation. There's a recent study that's been done by SMART about potentially bringing trail from Marin County over to Solano County by way of American Canyon. We have existing infrastructure in place to advocate for that and make it happen, and I would like to see that happen. Some kind of light rail system, more efficient public transportation to get us to the ferry. I know my time is up, but I have so many more ideas for this topic. I also was going to talk about park and rides. If we had better public transportation, why not park and ride? And then take the bus over to the ferry and get over to San Francisco. It's better for the environment and it's more efficient.
Natural growth with quality of life issues. The way the question is posed makes you think that it's one or the other. The very first thing we need to do is have a recognition that both are valuable. We have to provide homes. We have to make sure that we are addressing our jobs and housing imbalance. But we have to do that with a recognition that our residents who are going to endure those changes, that are going to absorb that into their communities, feel that their quality of life is being addressed and it's being protected. It's doing both at the very same time. It's not a one or the other. So when you take that it's both at the same time, it's going to require creativity. It's going to require creativity beyond simply what has already been set forth through the Broadway specific plan. It's going to require creativity in ways we haven't done before, in considering that light rail, in considering public transit changing to an on-demand model to meet our needs and desires much more like Uber and Lyft do for us. It's going to mean that we are going to have to come together as a community and decide, where do we want to go from here? Do we want to continue to live with the congestion, or are we willing to open up our neighborhoods and open up our hearts to welcome others to join us here?
All right, Belia, you're going to lead off the next question. This is still under transportation. In 5 years, if you were able to envision true success in this area, what would have changed? Specifically, how do you do that and go about that as a county supervisor?
5 years. In 5 years, Devlin Road, all of it, is built. In 5 years, Newell Road from the high school to South Kelly is built. In 5 years, the Vine Trail from Calistoga all the way to Vallejo is built. It's doable. And I'll tell you why it's doable. For nearly a decade, the county was talking about building Devlin Road. When I ran for supervisor in 2016, I told you I was going to make that a top priority. I am happy to report to you that you'll be driving on the county's portion of Devlin Road within 60 days. Talking for 10 years and getting it delivered in one term. It's doable. Devlin Road, Newell, and the Vine Trail.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah. Uh-oh. In 5 years, if you were able to envision true success in this area of transportation, what will have changed, and how do you do that specifically in the role of our county supervisor?
5 years, wouldn't it be amazing if we can actually drive 35 miles per hour on Highway 29 during high peak traffic hours? It's going to take a lot of creativity to get there. We have a lot of things currently in place and they're moving slowly, but we need to implement all of these plans that we have, right? And guess what? Implementation needs funding. Where is the money going to come from? I've frequently advocated for applying for free money, right? There's grants everywhere. I've actually been working with Senator Dodd and Supervisor Pedroza on getting funding to connect Newell all the way to South Kelly Road. But also, there are over 500 wineries in the unincorporated Napa County that are not paying a traffic impact fee. Why isn't that being addressed? Why aren't they giving us money? They're taking a bunch of it. We're stuck in all of this traffic because of those wineries. So why aren't they giving us money to help mitigate that? That's a problem. That's something that we need to work on. And I know we're going to have resistance from the wineries in terms of paying a traffic impact fee, so I have a second idea, a backup plan, have you? Why don't we put parking meters at these wineries so that their tourists pay us a traffic impact fee? So it's coming up with innovative solutions to make our future a reality, the vision that we've set for this town. We need to figure out ways to make it actually happen.
All right, we are going to lead the next question with Mariam, and we're entering a new topic of workforce and affordable housing and a jobs and housing balance. The first question for Mariam is, what kinds of new jobs will have been created, at what pay level? How have we balanced the types and amounts of jobs with the types of new housing necessary to meet the newly created needs?
So Mandy, your chamber asked me a very similar question in the 2016 Candidates Forum, if you remember, and it was more along the lines of what industries do we need to bring to American Canyon? And my answer back then, for those of you who were not present, was something in the medical sector, because a lot of our residents are commuting out to work in the medical sector. We're later going to talk about access to healthcare. We need to keep those professionals here. And also tech, that was also my answer. Tech. Since then, I've met with developers. They often ask us, council members, what kinds of businesses are you going to approve? What do you want to see here? And I've always said, tech, something in the medical sector, and something for our young people to do. So in terms of medical, we currently have a medical building going through the permit process through the city. In terms of tech, through the chamber, through my position in the Economic Development Committee, we've taken field trips. Chris actually led the charge and took us to Plug and Play in Sunnyvale. And we were working on, so for those of you who don't know, Plug and Play is like a tech incubator. So basically they have these biannual conferences where you pitch an idea to a room full of investors. If you're selected, then you get to live in Plug and Play for 3 years until you're able to stand on your own. So at that field trip, we met with, was he the vice president? And I personally gave him tours of different facilities in the Napa Valley so that we can bring their food and beverage branch here. These are the jobs that I think that we need to bring to for our residents. We need increased diversity, and those are the two biggest areas that I think that we need to improve on right now. And that's what I've been working on as your council member.
Do you want the question again? What kinds of new jobs will have been created? At what pay level? How have we balanced the types and amounts of jobs with the types of new housing necessary to meet the newly created needs?
The jobs that we bring are jobs that will allow us to thrive. And that amount is all tied back to housing. A livable wage in Napa County for an adult with one child is $16.12 per hour. But to rent a 2-bedroom apartment in Napa cost $48.50 per hour. That gap is what needs to be addressed when it comes to what jobs. With the changes in technology, automation is going to be something that is changing within our primary industries. We need to embrace it. But it's not simply about the jobs. It's about the training that comes with the jobs. It has to be a full package. When we look at the types of housing that we are creating in response to the jobs that we'll be creating, it must be at the same level. We have to make sure we are inventorying our affordable housing of how many affordable units we're going to need to produce to ensure that the workers that we bring can afford it. It's incumbent upon us to make sure that in addition to affordable housing, we are creating market rate housing opportunities as well. We don't simply have an affordability problem. We have a housing stock problem. We simply don't have enough supply. The jobs that we bring must be commensurate with the housing that we create in order for us to thrive.
All right, we're going to remain in this topic for one more question of workforce and affordable housing and jobs and housing balance. Belia, you'll lead this question with what changes would need to be made in the county's relationships with the cities in Napa County, and how might these come about through your role as supervisor?
One of the things I am most proud of as your supervisor is that I bring my city council experience with me, and I bring those relationships that I had at the council with me. Working with your city council, we have been able to bring about very necessary housing here in American Canyon. Working with the city of Napa, we've been able to do the same. The county does not build housing. We have an agricultural preserve, we have the ag watershed, and we simply do not have the available zoning designations that are permissible and necessary for affordable and dense housing. It requires us to have good relationships with our cities, to work with Mayor Garcia, who has endorsed me, to work with Mayor Jill Teckel, who has endorsed me, to get to the table and negotiate housing allocation agreements. I was recently asked in my endorsement interview by the realtors, the North Bay realtors endorsed me. They said, well, how do you do that? And I said, money. We give them money. And what money is that? Measure I, which was passed in the county of Napa, will be producing $5 million a year towards the Affordable Housing Fund. We turn that money over to the cities and we say, you build the housing. The cities work with the development partners like Saha, who built the Valley View project, 70 affordable units. That is what we must continue to do, to have those relationships We have great relationships, and we need to preserve them.
Do you want the question again? Sure. What changes would need to be made in the county's relationships with the cities in Napa County? How might these come about as your role as supervisor?
What changes we need to see in the relationships between the city and the county? We need to strengthen the relationships between all of the cities and the county. There's definitely a partnership opportunity here. The cities are better for building housing, affordable housing. The county can support us in doing that, and we can take their RHNA allocation, which is the Regional Housing Needs Allocation that's imposed on us by the state. We can take some of their housing requirement. We as a city can take some of the county's requirement, but they need to support us in other ways. For instance, helping us get the right-of-ways for Newell Extension that's in the county. That's just an example. But still more needs to be done. We also need to rethink the way of development and zoning, which I've said that several times tonight. We need to figure out how to build in a way that makes cars get off the road. That's very important to me because the less cars we have on the road, the better our environment is, the cleaner it is, the healthier our community is. If you're walking, you're exercising. It's safer, less car accidents. And yeah, I genuinely believe that we need to build stronger relationships. American Canyon understands that there's a need for housing, so we're moving quickly on projects of housing. So the county needs to support us on that rather than threaten us when we come up with projects that provide affordable housing to residents.
All right, we're going to switch topics now and go into the educational realm. So we will start that with Mariam. And the question is, what specific goals do you think leaders in education need to achieve in the next 5 years? And what role specifically does the county supervisor play in those changes?
So education is very important to the city of American Canyon. We have a lot of residents who move here specifically for our education. What role does the school board leadership, what was the question? What role does the leadership need to play here? We need to make sure that we preserve our quality of education. One of the ways that we can do that is finding out what our residents want. So in the city of American Canyon, we frequently create advisory committees. That's one way of getting to know what our residents want. So we've recently added the education and lifelong learning element to our general plan, which we're in the process of updating. We have a committee to advise us and let us know what our residents want in our education and lifelong learning plan. The reason why that's important is because although we are not school board members, we are city council members, we advocate for you. We advocate for you. We deliver your message. We are your voice. And it should be the same for the Board of Supervisors. We should have a strong enough relationship with the County Office of Education, with the Napa Valley Unified School District, and with the Napa Valley College. I have endorsements from each of those offices because I'm the candidate that's going to advocate for schools. I was the first person to ever graduate from American Canyon Middle School. When I was a child, I used to beg my dad to take me out of Vintage High. I went to Vintage High School. I used to beg my dad to take me out of Vintage High. Daddy, send me to Vallejo schools. They're not like me here. They're not like me. They're not like American Canyon kids. We used to be called the AC crew. But after I graduated, I can say with complete confidence that I got a top quality education in Napa County public schools. When I was in college, I was so far ahead of other people who are the same age as me because of my education here. So we need to preserve our programming, and it's going to take some kind of innovative solutions, maybe find our own source of funding for the programs that we want to see here. I'm very passionate about the schools. But that's what we need to do. So we need to be your advocates, your voice to the school board. We need to build those relationships, and we need to make your vision a reality, because that's our job as elected officials.
Specific goals for leaders in education in the next 5 years. The biggest threat we have to education is financial stability of our school system. Napa Valley Unified relies on average daily attendance funding. It is an incredibly unstable model for us going forward with the declining enrollment that we have. Last year, we lost 3% of our population in Napa County. Why? Housing. We're losing enrollment in our schools. Why? Housing. We have to make sure that together we get to a point where the amount spent per child in the district that we're a part of, Napa Valley Unified, has parity with what is spent up Valley. But yet, in St. Helena, they're a basic aid jurisdiction, and they have nearly 3 times as much money per child to educate them. That is not acceptable. Financial stability going forward is incredibly important. As a county supervisor, it's important for me to stand up for you, just as I have, just as I did for Mount George when they were facing closure, of advocating for those residents, those families, those students to try and keep that school open. Just as I did in promoting Measure H here in American Canyon, knocking on doors because it was important for our community. And just as I did speaking as a member of this community, asking the school board to build our second middle school. Leadership, speaking up. That's what a county supervisor does. That's what I have done.
So we're going to have a little fun and throw in an audience member question right now because it's a really good lead through to what you both were talking about, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
All right. So Belia, you will lead us on this one. And from the audience, quality public education is important to our residents. What do you see as the county's role in working with the school district, NVUSD, to address the decline in enrollment that is negatively impacting our children's education?
That's a great question. One of the things that we need to do is sit at the table together and let's talk housing. We need to look at where does that housing need to go, right? Our schools are built. They're fixed assets. They're in certain locations. So we need to be at the table with the school board and say, where do you need more housing? What are the areas that are having the greatest amount of declining enrollment that we need to identify? How can we help to create that housing together? That is principle. That's the very first thing we need to do, get together. The next, when we look at the finances and we look at the model of average daily attendance, it is too uncertain for us to go forward. I foresee a future where the county and the school board are able to advocate together for legislative changes that address the fiscal stability of NVUSD. It simply is unacceptable that the largest school district in Napa County gets the fewest amount of dollars per child. That is not acceptable for any of us going forward, and advocacy, joint advocacy, needs to be part of our respective platforms, and we need to take this charge together.
I'm going to put in a quick plug for the census. We keep on hearing that the reason why we're not getting a second middle school in American Canyon is because we have a declining enrollment and we're not going to be able to fund the operations of a second middle school, right? So just keep in mind, make sure when you get your census, please fill it out, because for each person that doesn't, we're going to lose $19,000 for each person that does not complete their census application. So spread the word. I genuinely believe that not only are we getting less funding per pupil, our school, our middle school, is a much smaller plot than other middle schools in Napa County, right? So now that we've reached this point where we have an overcrowding, it's a clear overcrowding. You just walk onto the campus and you can see it. It looks nothing like it did when I first graduated from there in 2000. Dang, it's been 20 years. We need to figure out how we're going to move forward. We need to figure out how we're going to provide our kids with the best quality education we can get them. And I think one of the ways to do that is figure out how we're going to continue funding programs. So recently I met with the superintendent of the Napa Valley Unified, and she explained to me that when they get funding, it has to be allocated basically equally amongst the entire school district. But if we get our own funding, we can keep it in the city of American Canyon. So we need to figure out innovative ways. We need to lobby the county. We need to make sure to find our ways of keeping our own funding in our own city so that our children do not lose access to the programs that are very important to them.
Let's lighten the mood. Mariam, what's your favorite type of ice cream?
Chocolate chip.
Belia.
Well, back in our country creamery
You don't have 2
days,
minutes to answer this one, Belia.
reflecting back to country creamery, it was Cookie Mint. But I don't know any other place that makes that, so anything that starts with the base of coffee.
All right. We're going to go to our next topic. It's Mariam will lead this one. Protection of natural resources. The question is, what kinds of new protection methods might be needed to achieve your goals as the supervisor? What current programs do you feel are not working and should be altered? And how would you specifically change them in your role?
Excellent question. Excellent question. Water. Water is the resource I'm going with. Water. We can't live without it. We can't. I have actually. I was in a country a few years ago where my water was shut off 3 days out of the week. Can you imagine? My first experience with no water, I was 13 years old. I was in the shower with shampoo in my hair, and the water cut off. As a 13-year-old, I started screaming, what's going on here? I'm freezing. Where's the water? Mom, the water shut off. But apparently that was the norm in the country that I was visiting at the time, and that's what we don't need here. Water is one of our most valuable resources. We have our zero water footprint policy, which I think is excellent. We also have recycled water, which is excellent but needs to be expanded. And when I say expanded, the country of Israel, 90% of its wastewater is recycled for reuse. That's crazy. We're nowhere near that. We are nowhere near that, and I think it's going to require a shift in our mentality, because who wants to know that their water was flushed down the toilet and then came out of their sink? But it's doable, and it's manageable, and it's actually very clean, and you can still use it. So I think that water is one of our most valuable natural resources, and we need to expand we have a limited quality. We don't ever want to run out of water. Limited quantity. So we need to make sure that we do everything we can to maintain the quality so that we don't lose it.
The question was the second one, right?
What kinds of new protection methods might be needed to achieve your goals as supervisor? What current programs do you feel are not working or should be altered? And how would you specifically change them in your role?
What new methods? Here I think is where it's really important that we all support Measure K. Measure K is going to provide a funding mechanism to support our parks and open space. And so why is that important? The acquisition of open space is in fact what will protect our trees, will protect our trails, will protect our watersheds. It is the funding of Measure K and its projected revenue that we could bond against to be able to purchase Skyline Park. If you've been to Skyline Park, it has touched your heart and you want the county to own it. Do you know we only lease it right now? But the governor signed a bill, SB 20, that allows us to buy it from the state, and that is in fact what we need to do. The open space district, counties don't do parks. The voters created the open space district, an incredible asset for this community. They go out and they, with the $1 million on good years that the county gives them, they are able to turn that around with grants and with other funding mechanisms to purchase land and to protect it in perpetuity. With conservation easements, with collaborations with the land trust, it is through the acquisition and the protections of open space that we are going to best be able to guard our natural resources of water, our trails, and our trees.
We're going to change things up and go to 1 minute now for a little bit of lightning round.
I'm ready.
I got to have fun.
I'm ready.
All right. So we're going to the miscellaneous category.
Ooh.
The first question is, Belia, how do you communicate with your constituents, and what is the best way to contact you?
Sweet. I have town halls. I am accessible by text, by phone, by email. Take it down. My cell phone is 707-200-8088. That's a way to get in touch with me. If you go and you Google Belia Ramos Supervisor, that takes you straight to my county website page, and right there it says request a meeting. That's how you get in touch. If you want to do that stuffy office thing, we can do that. But go ahead, text me, email me. Come to one of our town halls. I've had 6 of them thus far, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one, which is on Monday, by the way, at 9 a.m., talking about Planning Commission stuff.
Being accessible is one of the most important things about being an elected official, because how else do you get to be the voice of the people without knowing what the people want? The way you can reach me, you see me everywhere. You literally see me everywhere. It's very rare that I miss an event. I'm at all of the council meetings. My cell phone number, most people in this room have it. Most people in this room have texted me, have called me. I've had coffee with, I've had lunch with. I walk precincts every other year. So every 2 years, I'm walking precincts, whether I'm up for re-election or not. Door-to-door contact, seeing people on a regular basis. That's how you can reach me. My website, much like Supervisor Ramos said, you Google my name, you'll find 2 or 3 email addresses for me. You'll find my Facebook page. Some people in here communicate with me through Facebook. I have a Twitter account. I have an Instagram account. I have a city phone number. I have a business cell phone number. Any way you want to reach me, you can find me. And I'll be there, and I'll respond.
Next question in the miscellaneous category. We have had our fair share of emergency situations in the county with the fires, the power shutoffs, floods, etc. We know that the next downturn or disaster is just around the corner. So what are your plans and goals to help South County and American Canyon thrive during that next event?
Absolutely, and this is another reason why us being accessible is so important. We know where the resources are, and it's our job to communicate that to you. When the fires were happening, for instance, I was in constant contact with all 3 of the shelters in our area, and I was driving from one to the next, bringing them supplies. If one needed supplies that the other one had, that's what I was doing. Finding ways to communicate with people. So Nixle was not working for us. For car accidents, for the fires, for the PSPS. And then we, the city council, did some investigating. That was the biggest complaint we were getting, that Nixle isn't working. We did some investigating. It turns out that the county was sending Nixle alerts to American Canyon, but they were sending them to us late. So we took control over our Nixle, and now we're sending Nixle alerts. But for those of you who were here during the PSPS, we know Nixle wasn't working. Social media wasn't working. I called the city manager and I said, Jason, I live here. Dang it.
What are my plans to help us thrive during the next event? It comes down to preparedness, communication, and practice. Preparedness. I hope you have your go bag. I hope you're set up for Nixle. I hope you have a plan with your family. And if you don't, readynapacounty.org can help you get prepared. Communication. Communication was exactly what we needed during the fires in 2017 when I was chair of the board and I was responsible for delivering very, very tough news each and every day. Communication. And that communication has now been written down into a bilingual emergency preparedness plan and practice. You need to have drills with your neighbors, with your families. Make sure that your preparedness is ready to execute upon. Preparedness, communication, practice.
It's a scary question to think about, but it's something that we all really need to consider. But let's lighten the mood now. Belia, what's your favorite thing in 30 seconds to do in Napa Valley?
Oh, to do. I was going to say shoes. To ride my bike on the Vine Trail. That's my favorite thing to do.
To walk at the Wetlands Trailhead with my family, which we do almost every weekend.
Right on. Belia, I'm going to have you lead this one because that was kind of a playful question.
Okay.
This is, we're moving into audience questions now. So I have a handful in my hand, and if we have time for extra, we have some over here. 1 minute. The first one. Would you please provide a brief explanation of what a supervisor does? And then there's a little comment. I'm just going to read the whole thing. Provide a brief explanation of what the supervisor does. This is not an election where people are willing to participate in because they don't understand exactly how it affects them.
Supervisors take their charge from the Constitution. We are the ones responsible for providing for the most vulnerable. So providing health and human services is our greatest function at the county. Self-sufficiency programs, alcohol and drug rehabilitation, mental health crisis, mother-child nutrition programs, child welfare programs. We also provide for public safety. The criminal justice side is the sheriff's department, providing for corrections, which the Board of Supervisors runs themselves, and also providing for your county roads. We also have, much like municipalities, land use jurisdiction in the counties. But our principal charge is caring for our most vulnerable. That is where most of your tax dollars go from the county, and that is where you want them to go. We are only as great as the most vulnerable person in our community.
I was just saying, this is a factual question. It's not two different opinions.
I agree.
So
That's fair.
it might be more useful to just go for another audience question.
I agree.
It's a factual question.
Do you want me to
There's not much I can add to that.
Just go to She's right. She's got a point.
I'll go. Here's my 1 minute. I agree.
All right. Mariam, you take the lead on this one. Another audience question, clearly, because that's the section we're in now. What one part of county government would you give more attention to if you were elected as supervisor?
That's a very good question. It's a very hard question because I've been on the city council for the last 4 years and I have not been on the board of supervisors for the last 4 years. So a lot of, as you know, when I came into the city council in 2016, I didn't know how to be a council member, but I learned. Same thing with the board of supervisors. I know there's going to be a huge learning curve, but let me tell you one thing. A huge hot button issue in the board right now is land use zoning. There's a lot of arguing over whether we need to build more or preserve our open spaces. And that's where I want to step in. I believe there needs to be a balance between growth and between preserving the quality of life of our residents, because I don't feel like that's the case right now. We're suffering through so much traffic because of all of these expansions without the accountability of, you're bringing 7 new workers to the valley. Where are they going to live? Here's a permit anyway. We're not going to ask you that question. And that's where I want to step in on county issues, in addition to everything else that Supervisor Ramos mentioned.
Do you want me to repeat the question? What one part of county government would you give more attention to if you were elected?
So interestingly, today I had a supervisor meeting, and more than half my time was spent on land use. That actually is what we spend most of our time, is on land use. So to answer the question of what would I spend more time on, it would be homelessness and mental health. It is a growing problem in our community along the Napa River, in the South, in the Imola and the South Jefferson area. The mental health of our community, not just those who are homeless, but even of our youth, of our residents, needs to be a higher priority. It is the mental health and the sustainability of people's overall well-being that must continue to be a greater priority going forward.
All right. Next one. What other agencies or committees do you represent for the city and the county? This is a twofer, and they're kind of two opposites, but we're going to wrap it into one. The second part, how much time do you expect to give to the supervisor position? So what agencies or committees do you currently represent for the city or the county? And how much time do you expect to give to the supervisor position? And Belia, you're leading this one.
Okay, I'll try in 1 minute. I serve as the county's representative on the Napa Valley Transportation Authority. I serve as vice president of ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Governments. That's an elected position. I was elected by the 9 counties and 101 cities and just began that term. I serve on the North Bay Water Reuse Authority. I serve on the Highway 37 Committee with Mayor Leon Garcia. I serve as treasurer of the Latino Caucus of California Counties. And I serve on the Fire Services Advisory Committee. I serve on the Emergency Services Committee, and I'm sure I'm missing one. I am your full-time supervisor. This is what I do. I am a supervisor 7 days a week. In 2017, when the fires occurred, I worked 63 days straight for you. This is what I do because I love it, because I love engaging with you and I love representing you. I would like to continue to be your full-time supervisor.
All right, Mariam, question is, what other agencies or committees do you represent on the city and the county? And how much time do you expect to give to the supervisor position?
So I'm not going to list all of the committees that I'm on because they are available on the website, and we have one question, and I feel like this question is directed towards me because I have a full-time job. For this election, I have taken a leave of absence from work. I have a full-time job, yes, absolutely. My boss is extremely supportive of what I do in public service. As a council member, I have made it to every single meeting, and I have made time for my constituents, and I have made time for stakeholders. As a supervisor, I will scale back my job. I'm a council member 24/7. Whether I'm at work or not, you call me, I'm going to answer, and it will be exactly the same as a supervisor. As long as I have my laptop or my Surface or my iPad or my cell phone, I can work in either capacity, and that's what I will do.
Next one, we'll lead with Mariam, and I'm going to read it as it's written. The city provides services all the way to Airport Road. Shouldn't the city annex all of this so they can better control their northern boundary?
Not only should we annex it to better control our northern boundary, we should also annex it because it will bring us more revenue into the city. We annex county properties that we're already providing services to. Why shouldn't we get property tax from them as well? It's common sense to me. So yeah, that's the answer.
All right, Belia, the city provides services all the way up to Airport Road. Shouldn't the city annex all of this so they can better control their northern boundary?
The northern boundary has been established by the people through the urban limit line. That is actually how boundaries get established. There's a process in California through the acronym, the local agency for I understand what the acronym is LAFCO. I'm trying to explain it. It's a process that is a public process that decides how we go ahead and establish boundaries. The largest the county will ever be is today. The county does not grow. The only way in which cities grow is through intensification. It is important for the county's vitality and for providing for our most vulnerable that we guard our general fund, that we guard our property tax revenue. The airport is located inside that area. That is not to be a city asset, that is to be a county asset. And while we have to work together to provide these services, the county needs to retain control of this area.
All right. Belia, we are going to ask this question to you to lead first. In your opinion, what qualities are needed to be the District 5 County Supervisor, and how do you exhibit these qualities?
The qualities. You have to listen, you have to have empathy, and you have to collaborate. Listening. Listening comes from when people are frustrated with the backups on Highway 29 and having to figure out that the problem is the failures of South Kelly Light and that it's not waterproofed and it fails every time. There's a little bit of mist in there. Empathy. Understanding the struggles that people have. Understanding those that can't afford to live here, that can't find a place to even rent. Understanding the length of people's commutes. I live that too, but I also get to hear those stories from people. And collaboration, having the relationships to be able to take that empathy that motivates me to be able to deliver and to provide you a greater quality of life. That's what it takes.
He'll turn it on. Just
No, I got it.
okay.
Yeah, I think that was me. I would also add having the passion for your community to do what's right. Being an elected official is not easy, but we do it because you want to roll up your sleeves and get the work done. I have never been the kind of person to sit around and wait for someone else to do something. If it needs to be done, then I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I'm going to do it. And that's the reason why I ran for public office. I started volunteering with the city when I was 13 years old. My commitment to this city started at a very young age. I started volunteering, free money, every single day. My weekends were here, my after schools were here. I started at the age of 13, and I'm continuing my commitment to public service because I have a passion for my community, the community that made me. The other thing is being a consensus builder. It's something I do on a daily basis, which is the reason why I have so many endorsements today who initially supported my opponent, and are now supporting me because I'm a consensus builder.
All right, one final question, and then we are going to enter the closing remarks. So, Mariam, what is your favorite color?
Yellow.
She said yellow. Belia, what's your favorite?
Purple.
Purple. All right. All right, so we will go ahead and we'll do closing remarks. I don't remember who led opening. Okay, so Mariam, if you can lead the closing remarks, you have 2 minutes, and then Belia will follow.
So at the end of the day, I am not your polished politician. I may not speak the most eloquently. I may not know every single issue. But at the end, I'm going to fight for this community. I am going to learn everything that I don't know. Or that's never going to happen. I'm going to learn as much as I can. And I'm going to build relationships with those who are going to help me get there, who are going to help guide me on decisions that I know nothing about. I'm not going to know more about your household or your industry than you know about your household or industry. But when your household or your industry comes before me on an agenda, I'm going to call you. And I'm going to say, hey, so this is an issue on the agenda tonight, and I really don't understand it. If I go this way, how do you feel about that? How will this impact our community? Tell me something that I don't know. Bring me a different perspective. It's our duty to meet with stakeholders and residents to ensure that we adequately represent everybody. I will never know everything. I will never know everything. But I have heart, and I have passion for this community. I grew up here. I want my kids to grow up here. My fiance and I, we're looking to buy a house here. We want our kids to be able to buy a house here if they so choose. At the rate we're going, that's not going to happen. And that terrifies me, and I'm going to fight for this community, whether I'm elected or not, but I want to fight for you as your supervisor.
It has been an incredible honor and privilege to work with you, to listen to you, and to represent you. 6 years on the City Council, and now 3 years on the Board of Supervisors. To touch your lives, to know that your happiness, that your success is the county's happiness, is the county's success. That's what I want to keep on working on with you. As we move forward, we have tremendous challenges before us. They are not new challenges. Nothing about this is new. We still have pressures of housing, as we did years back. We still have pressures of traffic, as we did in years back. Our jobs housing imbalance has only gotten worse, and our funding sources keep having additional pressures. It's incumbent on you, on all of us, on our collective success and our collective quality of life, that you have someone that is ready to fight for you, that is ready to advocate for you, that is ready to stand up for what's right, that's ready to say to the governor after the fires, your surplus is what we need. This is our rainy day, and I need your money to fill our property tax losses. To be that person that can stand up and say, we are going to build affordable housing, and we are going to have the tough discussions in those neighborhoods because it's important for our future, for all of our futures. I enjoy doing this work for you full-time each and every day. I'm not learning on the job. I've been doing this job, and I want to keep representing you. Thank you.
All right, audience, I hope we served you well this evening, and I hope we answered most of the questions, if not all, that were submitted. We did take a look at them. We tried to fill them in the best we could. If they weren't answered, try to grab the candidates. They've given their information. You can find them. You can make a decision, and be sure to vote when your ballots drop in the mail. One quick little plug, it is currently American Canyon's first restaurant week. There are coupons in the back. Grab some on your way out and go visit our local restaurants. Enjoy a great meal with your friends and family, and tag us in the pictures so we can share them. Have a great night, everyone.